Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to all for this webinar, Rail and Metro Infrastructure 2021. Today's topic for the discussion is semi-high-speed rail, a cost-effective, sustainable transportation model. And for discussing the issues and the possible solutions, we have our honorable experts here, Mr. B. Ajit Kumar, who is MD and Rail, and Mr. Navendu Lad, who is ex-project director in Navi Mumbai Metro, and we have panelists as Mr. Keshav Mishra, vice president of in the GR Infra projects. Okay, so now without a further ado, we will turn over to Ajit sir. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to all of you for this webinar series. And I thank the organizers of the Rail and Metro Infrastructure 2021 for giving me an opportunity to talk on the prestigious project which we are now currently taken up. So I will go directly to my PowerPoint presentation. So Silver Line, the semi-high-speed rail project, a cost-effective, sustainable transportation model brought by Kerala Rail Development Corporation, or KRail we call it itself. And today I am going to talk about KRDCL and about the Silver Line project which we are talking about, and some of the features and sustainable benefits of the project, the project financing models and the investment opportunities, and a comparison of high-speed rails and semi-high-speed rail systems and its cost benefits. And about Kerala Rail Development Corporation, this has been formed as per the decision of the Union Cabinet. The Union Cabinet on 3/2/2016 gave its approval for allowing the Ministry of Railways to form joint venture companies with the state governments for undertaking various rail infrastructure projects in the states with an initial capital of 100 crores. So the purpose of forming this JV companies was to make these state governments involved in the railway infrastructure building. And accordingly, this Kerala Rail Development Corporation was formed, and with the state government having 51% equity holding, as well as the Ministry of Railways having 49% equity. If you see the map, you can see yes, KRail is being held by the government of Kerala as well as Indian Railways, and under KRail we will have the project-specific SPVs. And for this Silver Line project, we have one SPV. We have different projects, so for each project, we will have an SPV. And as far as the funding is concerned, yes, KRail through its owners, the government of Kerala and Indian Railways, infuse equity into the SPV. We also look at private funding in the similar to that of the Kochi International Airport or Kannur International Airport. So private funding we are expecting. And we are looking at multilateral or bilateral lending agencies like JICA, ADB, AIB, etc. for the funding of the project. And about the Silver Line project, Silver Line, the KRail, the semi-high-speed rail project will connect the north and south regions of Kerala state with the train services that will operate at a maximum speed of 200 kmph or an average speed of 200 kmph. The alignment has been selected as per the Kerala's longitudinal geography. So we are a narrow state extending from Trivandrum to Kasaragod. So the alignment is also similar. It is connecting the Trivandrum with the Kasaragod. KRDCL as the owner of the project shall establish an SPV to take up the development of this project. And this SPV shall be responsible for the development and operations of the Silver Line corridor. KRDCL also will establish a second SPV which will take up the sustainable developments in the form of transit-oriented developments in and around the stations and on the alignment. This project we have already got the in-principle approval from the Ministry of Railways. With the in-principle approval, we are going ahead with the pre-investment activities. The DPR of the project is already approved by the government of Kerala, and it has been even the alignment is also approved by the government of Kerala. And some of the project features is, yes, it is a double line connecting Trivandrum and Kasaragod with a length of around 529.45 kilometers. We have around 11 stations. Out of the 11 stations, 10 are district headquarters and one is Kochi International Airport. And the system works at an operational speed of 200 kmph. And the project cost is 63,941 crores. It is a completion cost in 2025. And some of the other features are from one end to the other end. Trivandrum to Kasaragod, we can travel in less than 4 hours compared with the existing 10 to 12 hours of train or road journey. Trivandrum and Ernakulam, which are two important locations, we can cover it in less than 90 minutes compared with the current 5 to 6 hours. It covers 10 districts out of the 14 districts of Kerala, and we plan to complete by 2025. We also plan to have some RoRo facilities for transporting the lorries, to shift the lorries from the road to the rail, so that the usage of fossil fuels can be reduced, the pollutions can be reduced, but in a limited way, because we are basically a passenger service system. So only for a limited way during the off-peak hours, and during the night time we transport some lorries in the RoRo facilities. And there are a lot of sustainable benefits to Kerala. It's a safe transport option model, reduction in heavy traffic. The tracks will be taken off the road, reduces the probability of accidents. We have around 40,000 accidents happening per year, and around 4,000 people losing their life on the roads of Kerala. So this transport model will have a lot of reduction in accidents and death. We will have multidimensional growth along the project alignment, and we will have commercial growth in and around the stations in various sectors like real estate, tourism, industries. There will be a lot of investment expected. Accessibility, as I have already told, 4 hours we can travel from one end to the other, and 90 minutes from Trivandrum to Ernakulam or Cochin. And this is a 100% a green transport project. The green power will be used for the input. We are expecting around 2.8 lakh tons of carbon dioxide reduction per year. And there are a lot of opportunities. One is job opportunities. We have around 50,000 people will get job during the construction phase of 5 years construction phase. 50,000 people will get job opportunities, and during the operational phase you will have around 11,000 people getting job opportunities. And there will be a lot of indirect or induced job opportunities coming up. And these are some of the ridership projections. After conducting a lot of studies, we found that there will be around 79,934 people traveling on a daily basis under a realistic scenario by the year 25-26. And these are all happening because of the shift, maybe some shift from the existing rail network, which is about 17% of the overall people. There will be a shift from the rail to this high speed, and there will be shift from the AC buses and non-AC buses, and a major change is coming from the car. Around 12% people is expected to have a mode shift from the car to this. And we feel it is quite realistic in the sense that if somebody has to travel in car, he will be spending around 10 to 12 rupees per kilometer. Whereas if I see the next slide, we have fixed a fare of around 2 rupees 75 paise. So compared with somebody traveling in a car, will spend 2 rupees 75 paise, will spend 10 rupees, 10 to 12 rupees, with the petrol prices now touching 100 plus. it will be around 10 to 12 rupees. And in this transportation model, we will the fare per head will be around 2 rupees 75 per kilometer. So that naturally somebody traveling by car, yes, we'll be saving a lot of money. And in case a family of 2 or 3 people travel in a car, still you are saving money if you go in this transportation system. So in the previous slide I was talking about this car, 18,000 or 19,000 people are expected to shift. We are 100% sure that people will shift, because it is not only the money they save, they also save time. So somebody traveling from Trivandrum to Ernakulam will take about 5 to 6 hours, whereas in this system he will reach there in 1.5 hours. So he saves time and he saves money directly. So and there was one more study conducted by DMRC, by ICRA for DMRC, and that also was talking about 90,000 people traveling on a daily basis. That was on a high-speed rail network. This is the proposed project financing model, wherein we have a debt to equity ratio of around 76 to 24%. And the equity comes from the owners. They are the Indian Railways and Government of Kerala. Indian Railways, we are expecting them to contribute around 2,150 crores as cash equity, and another 975 crores of land, crores worth land. Because in some of the places we are going parallel to the existing railway network, we are using the Indian Railways land. So that land is equated to the equity of Indian Railways. So it is around 2150 plus 975 crores of equity from the Indian Railways, and from Government of Kerala equity of around 3253 crores. We also expect the public equity participation of around 4,252. A lot of people are showing a lot of interest. And then this is our equity, and then we have the debt from multilateral or bilateral agencies. This project has been included in the ODA rolling plan of JICA. And as per the request of JICA, they wanted, because the amount is a little high of 33,700, they wanted the co-financing. So we have again reapproached the Department of Economic Affairs for co-financing, and the JICA, the ADB, AIB, and KFW will be the main lenders. It is almost in the final stages of posting to the banks. We have got the clearance from the Niti Aayog for the loan approval. We got the clearance from the Department of Expenditure. We got the clearance from the Ministry of Railways as far as the loan proposal is concerned. And then the subordinate debts in the form of taxes by the state government, central government is around 3,189, and the state government around 2,896. And as far as the land cost is concerned, as the JV agreement between railways and state government, the Government of Kerala is committed for providing the land free of cost for this project. So it is coming to around 11,837 plus 1,525, which is a deferred payment. So around 13,000 crores is the land cost, which will be borne by the Government of Kerala, will be treated as a subordinate debt from the Government of Kerala side. Plus we have the IDC to be borne by the Government of Kerala. So combined together, we will have around 63,941 crores is the completion cost of the project. And okay, as far as the land cost is concerned, the Government of Kerala has already sanctioned a loan of around 2,100 crores for land acquisition from the KIFBI, Kerala Infrastructure Investment Fund Board, and HUDCO has sanctioned another 3,000 crores for land acquisition. So the government, state government, and the KRail are in the process of organizing the funds for the land acquisition. And the investment secured with a strong project project financials. This project we have a financial IRR of around 8.49 percentage. The equity IRR for because we have the equity IRR is coming to around 13.55 percentage. So we feel that the project there will be a lot of interest in the investors. We have done a sensitivity analysis. In the worst scenario, we are getting a IRR of better than 7.82. And as far as the economic IRR of the project is concerned, we are getting an economic IRR of around 24.04 percentage, which is a good figure compared with the India government of India's policy of around 14%. Usually, any economic IRR, if it is better than 14%, it is considered as a economically bankable project. So we are getting around 24%, and after doing the sensitivity analysis, still we are getting better than 17%. So we feel yes, this project is a economically viable project. And now coming back to semi-high speed and high speed. Why semi-high speed is suitable in Kerala? As I have already told, we have around 11 stations. The stations are very close by. The average distance, inter-station distance is about 50 kilometers. Hence, the high speed, the potential of high speed cannot be fully utilized. It is in the sense that since the stations are so close by, if you have a high-speed network, by the time the train pick up the speed from 0 to 350 kmph, we should have already traveled around 20 to 22 kilometers. And then yes, from 350 to 0, we may have to break in 4 to 5 kilometers. We have to start braking. So effectively, in a stretch or a section of 50 kilometer, the train with the high-speed train will be able to run only for a small distance of around 25 kilometers. That means we are not effectively utilizing the potential of a high-speed network. That is why we have decided that we will go for a semi-high speed where the speeds are about 20 kmph, and within about 10 kilometers, 11 kilometers, we are able to reach the 0 to 200 kilometers. Plus in Kerala, the terrain is uneven terrain, sharp, steep gradients. So we are finding it difficult for having a high speed. We have to have more tunnels. We should have more high altitude viaducts. So the cost is going up very high if we have to go for a high speed system. Another fact which came out is that the average trip length of a traveler in Kerala is about 203 kilometers, or average 200 kilometers. Usually the people travel between the nearby cities like Trivandrum to Ernakulam. It is about 200. Ernakulam to Calicut, or like that. So we found that the average trip length is about 200 kilometers. So for a 200 kilometer, the travel time in a semi-high speed is only around 85 minutes. And in a 350 kmph high-speed system, it is coming to around 60 minutes. So the saving is only 25 minutes between semi-high speed and a high speed for the average distance of 200. It will have a lot of difference. If suppose somebody travel for a distance of 500 kilometers or still longer stretches. But in Kerala's particular, since the average trip lengths are only 200 kilometers range, the saving is very less, in the order of 25 minutes. And that too, if you add the two last miles, the initial last mile and the final last mile, if you add, then the difference, the saving is very, very negligible. And the cost of semi-high speed rail systems are half of that high-speed rail systems. I have another slide, so I will just give a small example of how the costings are being compared. And in Kerala, as such, we don't have much business travelers. Not like Mumbai, Ahmedabad, or other major cities where you have a lot of business travelers. In Kerala, it is more of social travelers, maybe the temple or relatives or tourism. Yes, tourism is very important in Kerala. So it is more what we feel that the people are all of the medium paying capacity travelers. So for them, it is is a medium ticket fare. What is we are looking? That is why we have gone for a semi-high speed system. And how is semi-high speed different than high speed? Semi-high speed is nothing but it is a conventional rail system. Whatever Indian Railways is having is a conventional railway system. So when that is in Indian Railways, we are running up to 160 kmph, something a little above that, 200 kmph. Yes, it is the conventional railway system. And up to 200, up to 250 kmph, yes, it is conventional. There is not much aerodynamic effects. Above 250 and above, yes, the aerodynamic effects will come into effect, and the technology itself is new. And that high-speed technology is not available with us. So, plus you require for a high speed, you require straight alignments. The curves has to be better than 6,000 meters. That means you require a lot of tunnels, you require a lot of elevated viaduct. And as I told, there is no technology available. We have to get the technology either from Japanese Shinkansen technology we have to get, or from Europeans we have to get the technology, or Chinese, somewhere we have to go for. We have to scout for the technology. Whereas in a semi-high speed, which is a conventional rate technology, yes, we. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Some freezing was there. I felt I am cut off. Okay. So the conventional technology is available with us with international standards like EN standards or UIC standards. Yes, we can design the track, the structures, everything as for a speed of 200 or 250 kmph. But above that, we have to tie up with some international technology partner. And the cost is very high for a high speed. Yes, the cost is very high because we have to get the technology for that. We have to import the technology. And I have made a small cost comparison. In India, BG tracks are fit for 160. So we have been constructing BG rail tracks. So we know the cost, what Indian Railways is constructing. And for comparison purpose, I have taken the cost of DFCL, dedicated freight corridor from Delhi to Mumbai and Delhi to Howrah, which the estimates are a little older, but then I have done the cost escalation and brought to the current levels. It will be around 40 to 50 crores per kilometer. But yes, dedicated freight corridor is fit for 100 kmph for freight trains with an axle load of 32.5 tons. But if you speak technically, the alignments are straight, and if the alignment, the curves are better than 1850, you can run the trains also to 160 kmph. Yes, it is technically feasible to run trains at 160 kmph. In fact, there is a debate itself going, why can't the existing Rajdhani and other trains run in DFCL, and the existing freight trains can go back to the Indian Railway network. There is a debate happened, but I think it is all closed. So what I'm trying to say is that the DFCL cost of 40 to 50 crores per kilometer is more than sufficient to build a double line track system, a rail system, which can run up to 160 kmph. Now, from 160 kmph to run to have a system at 200 kmph, you require only marginal increments of inputs. So for what is required, signaling has to be upgraded. The existing signaling systems is fit only for 160. You require something like EDCS level 2 and other things. So your cost, maybe I just put on a higher side, 5 crore per kilometer required. Electrical also, some improvements from the 160 to 200, some inputs are required. So I am just putting 2 crores per kilometer. The track and stretches, yes, it is fit for 200 itself, but still some formation improvement, something. So I go about 10 crores of per kilometer input. So that means overall cost of a semi-high speed rail system will be around 60 to 70 crores. That is what is required for in a country like India. We can have a semi-high speed system which will run at a design speed of 200 kmph. Maybe average speed depends on the a number of stations and other thing. In Kerala, since we have 11 stations, our average speed is coming down to around 135 kmph. Whereas in places like in some other states where the stations, the cities are far apart, the average speed will be around 150 to 170. So what I am trying to say is that we can construct a semi-high speed system with a cost of around 70 crores per kilometer compared with the 250 crores of a high speed system. That is a cost which we have for the Mumbai Ahmedabad. The current cost levels are around 256 crores per kilometer. So if India looks for building up of a high speed rail network throughout India, maybe for about 10,000 kilometers, then you require an investment of around 25.6 lakh crores of investment, which is a huge amount. So whereas if you go for a semi-high speed system, you will be able to go for about 1/3 of that cost. Now, as far as the Kerala is concerned or Silver Line is concerned, our cost is around 120 crores per kilometer because it is very special to Kerala. We have a lot of uneven terrain, we have more tunnels, we have a lot of water bodies, lot of rivers, a lot of lakes. So our cost is about 120 crores per kilometer. Still, we feel it is still half of, less than half of the high-speed rate. So we will be able to offer a ticket fare of half of what the high-speed rail systems will be charging. So we expect more people to travel, and there will be more shift, people traveling from their own private cars and other things to the public transport, to this rail. To these semi-high speed rail systems will be there. So semi-high speed rail systems are cost-effective, sustainable models for short distance travel. I am not saying that this is replacement of a high speed. It has to be a decision has to be taken based on in which location you are providing, how far your stations are, how far your city centers are. So if a city or a district or a locality where there are a lot of stations, this will be an appropriate transportation model. May not be everywhere. Like if you are going from Delhi to Mumbai, yes, I don't recommend that it has to be a semi-high speed. But then we will be able to have a mixture of high speed as well as semi-high speed systems, so that more people will be able to will be able to enjoy the high-speed transportation systems. I think this is my presentation for today.
Thank you, sir. Very informative information, because the semi-high speed would be one of standalone kind of project as compared to what we are having right now in India as a conventional railway system and the metro. Yes, the other two JVs, Indian Railways JVs, are also pushing for their like Pune, Nasik and Ahmedabad segment. But you are in a very reasonable stage, so that the people can see that yes, actually it is going to be happen. I have one a very generic question, that how it is comparable with our airlines services, because see, the 540 kilometer or 600 kilometer is approx the inter distance between terminals from start to end, and you have also airport connectivity across areas. So how we are envisaging the passenger shift from airlines to the semi-high speed network?
As far as this project is concerned, we have not considered airline shift, because the number of potential customers or passengers who are traveling in air is very less in the routes within Kerala. It's only one flight or two flights, and so we have not considered that input, even though we have conducted study. But for the argument purpose, yes, I can say that if you are flying, you will take 1 hour of flying. You will take 1 hour. You will reach 1 hour in advance. You will reach. You will take another 1 hour to come out of the. So you will effectively you will spend around 3 hours for traveling from Trivandrum to Calicut or something. So Trivandrum to Calicut, you will be able to travel in 3 hours by this system also, at half the rate or less than half the rate. And if you see something a little less like Trivandrum to Ernakulam, yes, naturally you will take the flight will take about 3 hours, whereas here in 1.5 hours he will reach the city centers. So I think there is a lot of potential for the short distance travelers. Yes, the semi high speed will be advantageous compared with air travelers.
Thank you, sir. And from your presentation, you also mentioned that innovative financing scheme, especially from the private investment, and you also going to start the land value capture in a larger scale as compared to what we are having in different projects. So, what kind of preparation is required? Because the same model can be replicated to the other the projects also, and it will give us a very strong reference. Because in India, we still believe on the referencing from one project to another project.
See, the main private investment, what we are looking is the equity contribution to the project SPV. And as I have already told, we have two working successful models like Kochi International Airport and Kannur International Airport, where a lot of Keralites as well as NRIs have invested, and that is not a huge amount. It is around 4,500 crores. That is one model. Second is that there are a lot of activities around the station, so we plan to have the station development on a PPP model. We have around 11 stations. In fact, the first station PPP is already sold off. Even though there is no formal agreement, the Kochi International Airport MD has committed that yes, I will give 1 acre of land and I will also construct the station at the CIAL's cost for this station at Kochi International Airport. So we expect that there will be a lot of other interested investors coming for the station development and the commercial development associated with that. Then we are identified a lot of land parcels around the station, so the transit-oriented development and other things around the stations are there. We also, I have told them that we will be having the RORO facilities, roll-on and roll-off facilities, which we are not planning to invest our money. We are planning to go for a PPP model where some investor can bring his investment, he can construct the RORO stations, he can own the rolling stock, he can do the marketing and run it for a period of that concessionaire period. And we also plan to have some the tourist trains in lines with the Palace on Wheels, because Kerala is a very hot tourist destination. We expect that a lot of investment can come for tourist trains and the high end as well as in the lower end models. So these are some of the PPP models which we are planning to include in this project. Not planning, we have already planned, and it is
great, sir. It will definitely create new avenues for other projects. I have a question with Nevendu sir, like with respect to the international scenario, how you are looking that the semi-high speed future in India will be comparable with the high speed or the other mode of transportation from a medium distance range, like up to 500 or 600 kilometers.
Okay, it's an interesting question, because if you look at the international scenario is actually full of semi-high speed rail only. If you look at Europe, it is full of semi-high speed systems. Few of them are high speed systems, and majority of them are semi-high speed. They actually go up to 220 kmph or 200 kmph. So, but before I go any further, I must commend Ajit Saab for his nice presentation. Very informative, very nicely laid out, and I must say that this is very appealing to even the layperson can understand every single one of his arguments. So, sir, thank you very much for that. I have some observations here which you already covered, but if you allow me, I will just touch a couple of things here.
Sure, sure.
One of them is you said about terrain. I think you're looking to do something similar to Konkan Railway, and so geographically it might be similar, and the challenges would be similar. And like you said, it is hilly terrain, it is uneven, it is on the western side in the Sahyadris. So I think the terrain is going to be challenging, and therefore your civil structures and your tunnels, everything are going to be have to be very, very carefully designed, and the construction processes are going to be challenging, and I'm sure you have a team which is going to work on that. A couple of things like the track form come to my mind, that for these the track form would need to be reviewed, because we had some experience in Delhi Airport Metro, where the track form that we used started some with some basic problems. So I think that is something can be reviewed. However, the noise coming from the tracks would be probably one on your radar, and how to handle noise there. Going back to your concept of providing connectivity for stations up to 50 kilometers is a brilliant idea. And I believe even if you look at metro systems which have interstation distance of 1 or 1.25 kilometers, if you have a line length which is, let's say, 50 kilometers, it has something like 35 stations. So getting from one end of the line to the other end of the line itself takes 1.5 hours. So you can imagine that commute can be a torture for a person who has to stand in the train for 1.5 hours. And so this concept of actually connecting cities, like providing a proper service for intra-city travel, or like a regional travel service, is really brilliant. And I believe you have very clearly brought out that the economics of this railway system would would be very viable in the long term, or even in the short term. And since you have suggested that there would be, I am sure this is going to be broad gauge. This is not going to be standard gauge. And we had done some review of technologies available for rolling stock, which is capable of running at these speeds. We find that in Europe, and coming back to your question, Keshav, that in Europe and in Spain, there is this Iberian gauge, which is very, very close to the broad gauge. And on the Iberian gauge, they are actually running semi-high-speed trains manufactured by CAF and Talgo. And so if you go to Wikipedia, or go to Talgo's website, or go to CAF's website, you will find that broad gauge, literally broad gauge trains are being run at these speeds. So I believe rolling stock designs are already available. They are viable, feasible. And the best part about broad gauge is, like Ajit Saab said, that you can use, I think, goods traffic. The goods trains can share this line in off-peak hours, and roll-on, roll-off facilities or other facilities for goods transport can also be used. So it becomes a very live, multi-purpose system. And I believe the MRIDC of Maharashtra, which you referred to, Pune to Nasik, was also based on similar lines. So I think the thought is in a very, very positive and practical standpoint. And I see no reason why such a system would not succeed in this country. And to add to Mr. Ajit's point, that the passenger today looks for convenience. Driving a car from even for 100 kilometers today in India can be a huge torture. The traffic is really overwhelming. So put that person on a nice train which runs at 200 kmph. I'm sure the car and many other forms of transport would see a shift to this mode of transport. So I believe we are looking at the future when we are looking at semi-high speed in the country. And I'm sure we are going to see many such endeavors elsewhere in the country. We are already beginning to see those. But I would still say that the Kerala line would be unique in the sense in terms of construction, in terms of its natural beauty, and the kind of tourist attraction this system might become. I think Ajit Saab would know more than that, more than anyone else on this. And I think I would congratulate him that he should take this on and push with this project. And 2025 is not very far off, sir, but
Yes.
such a long line in 5 years' time is ambitious. I wish you good luck for that.
So I'm adding one more thing across this alignment, that the industrial development, like potential of the industrial development is very high, and we can easily compare this line to the California semi-high speed or high speed line, because it is almost similar area. So really, I think it's a mega effort going to be taken by KRail, and also it will be a remarkable effort for others to start a similar connectivity projects within their states and within their cities. It will not only ease the commuter for choosing the rail transport as a preferable transport mode, but also the overall benefit in terms of cost, environment, and the local manufacturing capability improvement. So
True. I mean,
really
if you
thankful
look
to you,
at
sir.
this train, these systems, compare them with a high-speed system. The wheel profiles of high-speed trains can be very difficult to manage. And the number of wheel profiling operations on a high-speed trains are higher, if not much higher than the conventional rail system. So you can imagine the downtime of the train, the amount of maintenance required on these systems would again be much lower. This is something which we don't factor when we are actually, because you have to look at the operational side as well, not only the revenue but also the operational costs, and maintenance would be one of the biggest pullers in this specific direction. So so you can Keshav, you can compare it with various other modes of transportation in the world, in Europe, in South America, in America, but every single railway is unique, and the challenges of every single railway are going to be unique, and you have to solve the problem wherever you have the railway. So drawing parallels is not going to help. We have to solve Kerala's problem if we are looking at a railway in Kerala. And I believe the kind of terrain and the vision which we see here in this presentation and as presented by Ajit sir, I'm very, very hopeful that this is going to be a fabulous project.
If you permit me, I will supplement one or two things what Mr. Naveen Saab told.
Please, sir. Please, sir.
As correctly you have pointed out, the terrain is almost like Konkan Railway. Maybe the soil may not be so bad, but it is almost similar.
Yeah.
Because it is a part of the Western Ghats extension. And we have employed Sistra, the Paris-based transportation consultant, for preparation of the DPR and other technical assistance. We expect a lot of assistance from their side. Plus, we have also involved RISE for validating our DPR, for validating our design basis reports. So we are putting other independent agencies also to make our DPR and other documents foolproof. And as far as noise is concerned, yes, we have conducted a lot of studies, and further studies are being conducted as part of the process. And as far as this is like a regional transportation system, what Navindu sir told. And Delhi, you have the RRTS, the NCRTC is doing Delhi to Meerut and other places. Yes, it is almost similar to that. There it is 180 design speed with an average speed of 160 operational speed. And yes, because it is not that far away place. We are looking at connecting the entire Kerala, so we are looking something a little better than that. So the solutions will change from place to place. You can't have the same treatment for all the diseases. So as far as rolling stock is concerned, yes, a lot of debate had happened, and the debate has been a part of Indian Railways from the time Sridharan sir had started the first metro line in Delhi. BGMD debate started, and it still continues. So But we have taken a wise decision, maybe right or wrong. For some people it is right, some people it is still wrong. So we have decided to go with the standard gauge, which Mumbai Ahmedabad has already adopted, and the Delhi RRTS had already adopted, and Ahmedabad to Rajkot, the semi-high speed, they also adopted the standard gauge. Only Nasik to Pune, yes, they have a different reason, so they have gone for broad gauge. It is also semi-high speed. So yes, both are. It can be standard gauge. Can be broad gauge as per the local reasons, and as per the people also it will change. I am not saying that if somebody else comes. Wise me or the general consultant changes, they may come with a different thinking. So it's a debatable field.
But I think you have to take the decision one time, and then we need to stick with that decision.
Yeah, that decision is over. We are gone ahead.
So,
all our designs are with the standard gauge. That is done.
No,
but
that means
still discussions are happening. People are discussing, not the people who matters, the people who talk from outside. And Kerala, we do a lot of debates. So that debates are still going on.
So great, sir, and really thankful to both of you to putting a very clear concept that how the semi-high speed is essential for the Indian scenario, and also the requirement from the project development concept. What kind of financing could be possible? So exploring a new tools, exploring a new way of development will really be a welcome step. And I would like to congratulate to Kerala Rail entire team, and especially Ajit sir to taking it further, because I can understand that what kind of discussions he has to face and give the answer to convince them for the project approval. And also Navendu sir to putting international context into this. So thank you both of you, and it's really a pleasure conversation with you. Thanks from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Keshav. Thank you very much.
Over to Himani.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Keshav sir. Thank you so much, Ajit sir and Navendu sir, everyone who has participated in this webinar. Thank you so much, sir. And we'll start the next session at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Himani. Thank you, and bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Himani.